Disclaimer. The following podcast is without a doubt our finest work. But having said that, you'll have to wade through some other stuff to find it. That's okay, though. It's going to be worth it.
You are watching or listening to the Brain Software Podcast, episode 184, originating in the Hypnotic World Epicenter, Toronto, Canada. I'm Chris Thompson, and today, Mike Mandel and I are going to talk about fear. All kinds of fear. So stay tuned.
Hey man, did I scare ya? I'm totally ready over here. I've built an astral fortress out of transparent aluminum, and the Wolfman candle's burning bright, Scro. So let those little black-eyed kids show up here wanting to come in and use the foam bag. I carry a blade, so I'll be their worst nightmare. Where was I going with that thought? Oh yeah, let's ask the usual Zen Cohen kind of question. Dimmy, why you do this to me, Dimmy? Scare ya? Think it was The Exorcist? But seriously, Scro, whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know, man?
These are days of victory. So break out the wolf's bane, polish your silver bullets, and buff up on the words of the dread Susama ritual. Because here he is, Dennis Wheatley.
Correction, please.
Here he is, Mike Mandel.
Yes, Christopher! I have mastered that spin, and my neck is all good in the goodery.
It's like this really cool, you know, the Doppler effect? That's what it makes me think
Yes.
of.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, speaking of Doppler effect, this morning, coming in... You can't make this stuff up.
Is this another
Just
Lake Ridge story?
No, this was on the road coming down from Manila.
Oh, of course, because you were coming in from the cottage.
Deck on my back bumper, so close, Chris, at 90 kilometers an hour, so 54 miles an hour.
He's admiring your Subaru.
I couldn't see his front wheels, he was so close. And he just stayed there. And he stayed there, like Jack.
Was he grinning in the grinnery?
He was grinning it. No, he was staying in the stayery, though, right on my back bumper, like Jack the frickin' Stayer. And I was so pissed off. I kept slowing down. He'd stay with me. I speed up. He caught up. Finally, I pulled way over to the side. There was a long stretch of the broken line.
You're giving him an opportunity.
Give him an opportunity. He's still not taking it. So I wind my window down. I give him the finger, pointing forward. Go. I'm yelling, you dick. And finally, I guess I should pass. And then he's gone. And guess what, Chris? It was an old guy. An old guy just gripping the top of the steering wheel like Jack the frickin' steering wheel gripper. And just driving like an idiot. Anyway, it stressed me out. Every time I come here, I arrive with high blood pressure because I'm moron. So that's my start for today.
All right. Well, with that said, what have we got going on? So today's podcast, before we get into the think tank words, we have nothing to promote, as of course we've always decided now that we're doing that at the end. We want to make sure you get the content. We're going to be talking about fear.
I'm looking at myself in the thing. Sorry.
Yeah, when you created this topic for us on this particular episode, fear, what did you have in mind? What's going on? Why are we doing an episode about fear? Well, I'm afraid to point it out,
Chris, but what it was scare ya! Well, the whole aspect of fear as a nominalization, every aspect of fear that's useful, fear that's useless. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to live? Can we live fear-free? Should we live fear-free? Well, that was pretty well the podcast done.
And there's pretty much a lot going on in the world still where people are afraid. So
you're looking at yourself in that monitor, aren't you?
I was, yeah.
I caught you, man, because I was looking at myself. Okay.
So,
you like my Hawaiian shirt?
I do.
Thank you. That's all. Just wanted acknowledgement.
I think that really is going to play into the very first of the think tank words. So before
give the qualification.
Before we do the think tank words, and they'll appear on the screen here. What is the purpose of them again, real quick?
The purpose of the think tank words, Chris, is we generate random words, usually from Savo Bukacek's think tank, which is a way of stimulating creativity and connections, but not having it with me at our cabin on Bob Lake.
You do the online version.
I did online nouns. So this generated 3 random nouns that we will then approach to activate our brains and to draw us into the topic matter. And
to
the
give
first
us some
one,
spontaneous creativity.
Correct.
Right.
The first one is development.
And that's why I mentioned it with your shirt. I mean, this is an interesting development in the fashion of Mike Mandel.
Thank you.
So there you go. So
I'm glad
development.
You didn't say fascist. I wondered where you're going from.
In all seriousness, though, when I think about development, I'm thinking about a construction crew building a condominium or shopping center or something.
Or an outdoor fireplace, like a gas fireplace with a gazebo in front of it.
Like the one that's going in my backyard right now, which is awesome. Yeah, we're building this massive natural gas-powered fireplace with an 8x8 structure around it.
It's taken up a third of his 160 acres.
A third.
Now, listen. So development, to me, development is always about improvement.
Something new and something improved. Yeah. I guess you wouldn't tear down a beautiful shopping mall to build a crappy...
to build a forest. Yeah.
Like something crappy.
Thank you, Joni Mitchell in reverse. That's just freaking weird.
So I think that's a great point.
Put up the parking lot. Hey, man, put up the parking lot.
Oh, that's so funny.
Late last night, I heard the screen door slam. Don't slam the door, man. And a big yellow taxi, it come and it take away my own man. Hey, man. I don't know where that came from. Can I just say that I enjoyed doing that out of all proportion to the quality of the content?
This is going to become a new theme, I think, on the Brain Software podcast. But development, I like your point. It's about improvement. Okay.
Even if you're, developing in a foreign country, you're pouring money in usually to improve the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So ultimately,
foreign development, business development.
You can loot the diamonds and the resources there for your own country.
Isn't that nice?
Which is how it typically goes. Next one is recipe.
Recipe.
I thought you might see that and think it was recipe.
No, that would be odd.
That'd be awful.
That's so funny.
So what does recipe mean to you?
Recipe. So recipe is it's two things really, right? It is a list of ingredients and a set of processes, a set of steps to follow. Okay. So you have to do both. You have to have the ingredients and you have to follow the steps in order or you don't get the result you want, right? So I suppose that's a useful thing to think about. Okay, I don't know where you're going, but I don't want to ask.
It'll cancel our podcast. Okay, so recipe, there's going to be a sequence in a recipe. You know, they say that cooking is an art, but baking is a science, because baking has to be absolutely specific. I think you'd be probably a pretty good baker, because you're very science-minded, know what I'm saying?
Glad you didn't say I'd be a good candlestick maker.
Know what I'm saying? Yeah. The other thing is, if we put development with the recipe, I see a recipe as a formula, not necessarily for food. So one could be developing their business by creating a recipe for growth, for attainment.
Yep. And when you put all of this together, and we haven't
you
got
get
the
clothes.
Third word, think about how to apply all this stuff to making your life more awesome. Because the entire mission here at MMH, Mission Central, Mission Control, now, is to teach people how to live a more awesome life, build a better life.
I just want to point out for the record, he's right, damn him, he's right, and we're living an awesome life right at this moment.
And that can come from the two groups that we serve. One, most of the podcast listeners, personal development focused, but the other focus, of course, is hypnosis and hypnotherapists who are learning more tools to help their clients. So whether you're helping yourself or you're helping your clients, that's what we're all about.
Now, I would like to point out a very terrifying thought at this moment, which is, it fits in with our whole concept of fear. Some of you may think that Chris and I have regular jobs and we do this podcast for fun.
Oh, no.
Nothing could be further from the truth. This is our job. Right now, we are actually at work. Isn't that terrifying?
We say that to each other all the time.
We're at work right now. Yeah. And I can stop and drink perfectly ordinary coffee if I feel like it. And I can get fired, but I rehire myself.
That's right. Okay. So third word was
clothes.
Clothes. So that, I'm going to just immediately tie that into the idea that clothes can change. Clothes have a purpose for a situation.
Clothes make the man.
You wouldn't want to wear your bathing suit to a wedding, and you wouldn't want to wear a wedding dress to a swimming pool, There you go.
No, there's anything wrong with it.
But you can change your clothes to a changing circumstance, a changing situation, so things can change, right?
Well, changing your clothes to me sounds like... it's like changing your identity almost.
Yeah, and it's a really easy thing to do. It's that outer layer that you present to the world. It's the easiest thing in the world to just change.
Well, Chris, when I present like at Hypnothoughts or in Britain or whatever.
You always wear a sports jacket.
I wear a sports jacket and nice jeans and a good shirt and stuff, and I look freaking amazing.
And then when you're done?
When I'm done, I go back to wearing, cut-off T-shirts, AC/DC, and, stupid pirate scarves on my head, and I've got the earrings already. I had for 50 years. Anyway, so remember I said the woman came up to me at the elevator in Las Vegas, said, "Mike Mandel." I said, "Yes." She said, "Why are you dressed like this?" I said, "Because this is me.
This is how
me.
I dress, yeah.
So let's be the me we can. Let's get a recipe for a new tomorrow, folks. And let's get that development happening. Fear definition, Chris, first of all.
Right, so let's talk about it.
I plumbed some dictionaries online, and I've formulated this essentially based on Merriam-Webster and some other things. Definition of fear: an unpleasant and usually strong emotion tied to anticipation or awareness of danger.
Yeah, good point.
You like that?
Yep, I do.
Does it
Absolutely.
scare you?
So a strong emotion tied to anticipation or awareness of danger.
Right. And I think when we feel fear, if we're aware of it, we can recognize we're actually feeling it in our body.
Yeah.
And that's where these strong emotions are. You know, with the kinesthetic pathways in the body, we are feeling fear. And we've all had those times. Well, let me ask you, Chris, what scares you? I've got it in my notes here. What scares you, Chris?
Yeah, I see that in the notes. And let's get to that in a second. I want to make sure, though, that we delineate fear with an anticipation of danger from anxiety, which is an anticipation of maybe a bad feeling, but isn't necessarily physically harmful or anything like that.
Well,
right?
if you get further down in all my bullet points
do you already
here,
have
you'll
that?
see we're getting to that.
Okay, so we'll get to
5
that.
points from the bottom.
So if we're sticking for
start
now,
again.
Are we sticking to fear for danger? I would say, you know what? What scares me, when I was a kid, I would say I was much more fearless with respect to, let's say, riding a bike.
Yeah.
So now,
oh man,
I'm a little older, and this has never happened to me.
lot.
But sometimes I can be riding my bike in town, and I'll approach one road that has a good downhill slope.
Yeah.
And if I'm speeding up on that, I might think,
I should close my eyes.
what if my front wheel just falls off the bike?
Yeah.
And I go ass over tea kettle, and
That's a strange expression, Bruce.
break a bunch of bones, right?
Yeah.
Wearing a helmet, of course, but it'll still hurt.
Oh, I'm wearing a pith
But there's
helmet.
there's your danger right there. So I'll be, if I'm riding my bike very fast down a hill, I can get a sense of, oh crap, what if I fall, right?
Listen,
that'll happen.
you've triggered a memory here because of the pattern matching system of our brains. I'd totally forgotten this. When I was in public school, I had a Dunelt bicycle made in Britain, single speed with a coaster brake.
Oh yeah.
I of course put high bars on it and a banana seat, and chop the back
As one does.
fender to get the so I can do wheelies and stuff. Inniswood. If anyone wants to Google this, go on Google Maps and look up Inniswood Crescent in Toronto. There's a sharp curve around Inniswood Crescent. And Brian McDowell and I used to fly around that corner on our bike super fast, let go of the handlebars, and I would flip my left leg over
So you'd be
the crossbar.
yeah.
And I'd be sitting sideways with my feet out and my hands like this.
riding with no hands.
Flying down with no
sideways.
hands across it like Jack the frickin' Cirque du Soleil rider.
Yeah.
I think of that now. My hands get sweaty with fear.
Were you doing that and navigating the corner?
Yes, Chris. That's why I
Wow.
want you to Google it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So
And I used to ride my like fake BMX kind of knockoff from Canadian Tire bike.
was this
with-
like a stationary bike?
No, I would ride no hands, and I'd be out like pretending
I
I was
know,
just
it's crazy.
surfing in the surf.
It's insane.
And I
Life
wouldn't
is
do
too
that
precious,
now.
man. I've had too many injuries, too many broken bones. I would never do that now.
I
But-
used to ghost ride my bike. Do you know what ghost riding is?
I know what ghosts are, man.
So we'd go down a hill. I used to live in an area of Ottawa called.
Is this where you dress up in white sheets and stuff and ride around?
No, I lived on a street that had a hill right across the street at
Yeah.
a park. And that would be the winter tobogganing hill and stuff. I literally lived across the street. It was great. So me and my best friend Chris and a few of my other friends, we used to get together and ghost ride our bikes down the hill, which means you start going and then you step off of the bike and let it go on its own and have a competition to see whose bike goes the furthest down the hill
Now, that's
before
kind of
they
interesting.
crash.
Yeah.
And one time my handlebar bent and stuff. And
Oh,
of
buddy.
course I bent it back.
It's an aside, but it's a good one. One of my favorite things to watch on YouTube was when the guys kept getting their bike stolen, and they got a bike, and they cut all the frame apart and taped it together with
So
gaffer
as soon
tape.
as the guy gets on the bike.
And then they disconnected the brakes. And they left it up in a park, up on a hill. And you see a guy come up and he's looking around. Nobody's there. Nice looking bike.
Steals
Jumps
the bike.
on it, starts rolling down the hill.
And then it just collapses.
And there's no brakes.
Yeah.
And he's frantic. And then the bike goes in 1,000 pieces. I think the guy died, but
Oh, man.
no, but it was horrible. So what scared you as a child, though?
What scared me as a child? I think when I was a kid, if I got picked on, I was afraid of certain kids, certainly.
Yeah.
So there was that.
I was terrified of bullies. Yeah, for sure.
I think also when I was a kid, when I would take karate or taekwondo, I was afraid of getting hit hard.
Or afraid of discovering they wouldn't work in the real world.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't know that at the time. But yeah, so things like that.
Yeah.
Afraid of being hit hard, even in a sport, and afraid that some kid was going to pick on me and possibly hurt me when I was a little kid.
And that's legitimate. I was bullied a lot. I was a skinny little kid like you were. As a kid, I was scared of the dark. And my mother made me scared of ghosts because my mom had tons of weird paranormal experiences, her and her sister, and they sat up in the night. There was somebody in their room. I'm back on here. And they could feel someone sitting on the bed. And I slept with my light on for about a year after that. I was only about 17. But no, I was about 13. But this is the kind of stuff that permeates childhood. Childhood is a time of fears. But as we grow up, the whole point is to overcome these things.
Right.
I mean, I was scared of the dark. I'm not anymore. I mean, I'm an 8 now. I live in the freaking dark. I'm the scariest mofo out there. And it's something that I have grown from. But the one that was the most pervasive fear from my childhood, Chris, was I was terrified of the dentist. Just terrified.
Yeah,
I didn't have the kind of teeth you got. You got these freaking... Look at his teeth. Look how white they are. It's actually probably dangerous to look at them without sunglasses on.
Oh, they're not that white.
These are veneers. I had not a sadistic dentist, just a freaking idiot, Dr. Roach, Howard Roach, Greenwood and Danforth. And he would do secondary molars. He would fill them right into the pulp with these big pulley slow drills that generated heat with no anesthetic. You just hold the nurse's hands. It's a terrifying thing. And it wasn't until I was an adult much later when I was going out with this blonde girl from Finland who had amazing teeth. She sent me to her dentist and it fixed the whole thing. But that crippled my childhood. I'd be counting down. And because I had bad teeth, I had to go to the dentist every 4 months instead of every 6.
Uh-oh.
So 3 times a year, there'd be the terror dentist, Dr. Roach. I got over it, though. Now, my question is, you know, Chris, you don't have any phobias, do you?
I was just thinking it's a good thing there aren't 16 months in a year, or you'd have to go to the dentist 4 times a year.
Shut up, Chris. What if there are 40 months in a year? I have to go 10 times. What if there's 4 trillion months in a year? Then I'd have to go...
I'm just glad somebody's going to not get that joke and then do the math and go,
it's not interesting. We will edit that out.
Right. Okay, now, what was your question?
You don't have any phobias, do you?
No, I can't think of. I mean,
but if you have,
I might have one if a situation arose. Like, I don't think I want to go walking around alligators that are lurking.
That's not a phobia, though. Lurking the lurkery.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I can't think of any
because they're on you like
phobias.
Jack the frickin' Ripper. But no, you know if you have a phobia because a phobia is an unreasonable fear. How is the position of this pecker? Is this
you're looking good. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, man. Phobia is an unreasonable fear. And that's one of the fears that people have who have a phobia. When I've treated, spider phobias and things like that, a lot of spider phobias.
Like, I don't want to go up on a ladder really high. If I'll go up and I'm not afraid of the idea. I get more afraid if I get too high up and I feel unsafe.
Yeah, if it starts to wobble.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can go up and clean the eavesdrops, clean the leaves out of them.
Yeah, I pay people to do that
But if I had a really high ladder and I needed to get up on the roof,
as you do,
and I don't have a lot of practice doing that kind of thing,
take a parachute.
Like a roofer would.
Yes, like Jack
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to feel unsafe. And that's a natural fear to me because I might fall and die.
That's a good point. Now, I said when I treated a lot of spider phobias and snake phobias and stuff, I treated an Ontario Provincial Police constable, a female, who was up near Bancroft, went to make an arrest, had to walk out in this guy's dock, and there's a garter snake on the dock, which, is completely harmless.
Yeah.
She did not remember taking a single step, and she was back at her cruiser, like 200 feet away.
Okay.
And anyway, so when I went to treat that, I said, we can completely remove this fear. She said, well, I don't want to be going out and liking snakes or liking spiders. You're not going to fall in love with a tarantula if I take away your fear of spiders.
Yeah.
You just, I said, the unnatural fear will be removed. Now, natural fears like heights, you can get rid of the terror where somebody can't go up on 2 steps of a ladder because they're so scared of heights. But you're never going to get rid of the reasonable fear. You're not going to have people standing on the edge of the, Scotiabank Tower or something leaning over.
So with respect to garter snakes, because of course there's lots of them up at the cottage area and stuff, I'm not afraid of them. I see them, it's no problem. But I'm not also going to reach out and grab one to pick it up because I don't know, do they even have teeth or anything? I don't know. But
snakes? Of course they do.
I don't want him to bite me or something, so I'm going to just leave him be. I'm sure there's a technique to grabbing them close to the head.
Yeah, you grab behind the head.
So they don't bite you. But I have no interest in picking the damn thing up.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid of them. Yeah.
We were on a camping trip when I was a kid. My friend Steve War, who was my agent at the time, went with these 2 girls on this great camping trip. Funny memories, I'll tell you sometime when we're not recording. But anyway, he got bitten by a snake up at, Sandbanks Park?
Yeah.
He was just rummaging, fastened on his hand, a big snake. And
at least it was
bleeding. And I had a first aid kit. We put some peroxide on it or something. And about 2 hours later, I said, I guess it wasn't poisonous.
Yeah, being in Ontario, we are lucky that most snakes are not.
No, they're not. No,
poisonous.
remember, I used to have altocellulophobia, which was the fear of heights. I cured that. That was a crippling thing. But listen to this. This sounds like a ludicrous fear, but it was a real one for me, Chris. When I was a kid, not a phobia, my fear. I had a bookcase in my room, and my absolute fear was when I was about 13. Being an autodidact, I learned on my own. I can remember being afraid that I would die before I got to read all the books I wanted to read.
Now, is that a fear or is that an anxiety? That sort of gets back to the idea of danger.
Good question. Why don't you explore it while I have a sip of this perfect ordinary coffee?
I would say that's in the category of anxiety because there's no actual danger. If you told me you were afraid that the bookshelf would fall on you, that would be... As you're trying to drink your coffee, I knew that was going to happen. That would be a fear. The other one, I would say, is an anxiety.
Now, you being an NLP guy and a hypnotist, what do you think of FDR's quote when he said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself?
Well,
I can hear that hypnotically.
We're afraid of the emotion of the fear, right? That's what we don't like. We don't like the discomfort of the feeling.
It. And people who have a phobia, we said this before in the podcast, it's kind of mind-blowing when you think of it. If someone has a fear of snakes, they're not really afraid of snakes. Even if it's an extreme phobia. You know, I dealt with a woman who couldn't watch a snake on TV from across the room. Mm-hmm. It was so bad, and it's gone now. But it's not the snake she's afraid of. She's afraid of the feeling she gets when she encounters a snake.
Now,
it's always that.
Is that always the case with fear, though? Because
it's the case with phobias.
Let's say if I'm afraid of, let's go back to ladders. If I was afraid that I'm way high up on this ladder and I could fall, I'm literally afraid of the idea that I may get seriously injured.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had a fear of a garter snake, but logically I know this garter snake can't do anything, it can't hurt me, then I would be afraid of the feeling of that snake and he might bite me and it might be uncomfortable. But there's no actual harm here.
No, but it's not a phobia. Mm-hmm. See, the phobia is when they see it, it's that horrific feeling.
Okay.
I mean, the feeling when I had the altocellulophobia was horrendous, terrifying.
Okay, so if it's a phobia, then it's true. But if it's a normal fear, then that's fine. You're saying it's not the emotion, it's the actual...
We're considering consequences of some kind, right?
Now, it's more conscious-minded.
Let me ask you this. This is kind of interesting. Do you know dogs? Oh, first of all, this is kind of interesting too. Infants have only 2 innate fears. Do you know that?
Let me think. I'm trying to think of what they are, Mike.
Looking at myself again.
What are they?
Fantastic shirt. Infants, we are born with only 2 innate fears. One is the fear of loud noises, loud noises, and the other is the fear of falling.
I was thinking falling. Yeah.
Everything else is acquired over time.
Interesting. Okay.
And some of the things we acquire are reasonable. Like, playing with rusty razor blades is probably not a good idea.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so that's the innate stuff, and then the rest you learn.
The rest are acquired. But did you know animals can have phobias too? It's kind of weird. Heather's dog, Misha, years ago, this little fluffy dog, had 2 fears. In fact, it made the newspaper. The Toronto Star printed this. It was so bizarre.
Okay.
Misha had a fear of the smell of raw lamb. Weird. And if they take lamb chops out of the fridge and they start defrosting, the dog would start going...
And getting worried.
She'd crawl out of the room and hide under the bed.
Well, that
once the lamb was cooked,
then it was
she'd come back and eat it.
Was this due to some sort of dog trauma?
I don't know. I haven't.
Imagine?
Haven't really followed up on her life or interviewed her on this, but that's bizarre. And it said the newspaper article said 1 whiff of lamb sends dog running for cover. That was the headline, and nobody could explain it.
Weird.
But it was only raw lamb. Then when it was cooked, it was fine. Maybe it smelled like a slaughterhouse or something to an animal. The smell of I can't stand the smell of lamb. I used to eat it, but I can only eat it now if it's highly spiced with Indian spices.
Okay.
It's just horrible. Too pungent. Now, the other thing is, Misha also had a fear of this. I'm not making this up.
I see it in my notes, so I know where you're going.
It's a Kleenex held on the lip.
It has to be held on the lip?
On the lip.
Okay,
the dog was in the room. I had a cold sore at the time, and I went like this, dabbing it. The dog looked at me and freaked out. I said, "What's the matter with her, Misha? Come here." She comes over. I'm like, that dog freaks out. A Kleenex held on the lip, not out
so
here.
Bizarre, Mike.
Yeah, I know.
So the Kleenex here, no problem.
Right.
The Kleenex here,
major
out.
problem.
Okay, very weird. All right.
Now,
these have to be learned behaviors.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Now let's ask this: do you watch scary movies?
No,
I don't really either.
Yeah, I don't get particular enjoyment
That's
out of them.
it.
Yeah.
And I don't like suspense. Mm-hmm. I find too much suspense. It stresses me out because it's this.
suspense.
Well, it's this Zygarnik effect, right?
Yeah.
The loop is open. I'm thinking, just jump out of the closet so he can stab you in the head.
Oh, that kind of
end
suspense,
this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the three things that scared me the most in movies were The Exorcist when it first came out.
Okay.
I went with Sandy, this girl from my work, when I worked at Bell Canada. It's like 1973. We went to see it.
I wasn't even born then,
Born, Scro. But it was in the news that Exorcist, people were fainting watching it and all this. It was primed to scare the crap out of us. And here I was.
And
I was
it's not very scary.
20 years old. Mm-hmm. And I'm holding her hand like this.
Oh, you were?
So
you
freaked
didn't
out.
Like
yeah,
it? Okay.
so freaked out. Of course, now I'd look at it and laugh. Now, the other one was The Woman in Black, which had the scariest single scene of any film I've ever seen. Now, not the redone Woman in Black with Daniel, what's his name, Harry Potter. The original one with essentially no-name people in it. We watched that one Halloween on video. There is a scene, it warned in the paper, it said, if your blood does not turn to ice in this scene, you're not human. He's lying in bed. He's been seeing this woman in black appearing in graveyards and stuff, always at a distance, eerie as hell.
Okay.
They set you up all the way through with these fake things that you're going to be scared, but you're not. So he'll be walking by a window and it's just there. And you know she's going to be at the window.
You.
Oh, yeah. You know she's going to be at the window, but she isn't. Or he'll do the thing where he's got his head down, opening a door from his perspective.
And
but there's no one there. It never, ever happens.
Until it does.
And then finally he's in bed with a fever. And she appears in his frickin' room, floating down from the ceiling, going, ah! Like just out of nowhere. I just went, ah! Oh, terrible. Now, the third one is, this is the thing about fear. The film The Haunting, which is based on the book The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Great book. Bad vibe to it for me. That movie was black and white from about 1963. It is brilliantly done, Chris, because you never see anything. In the whole thing.
The best kind.
It's all left to the imagination. Yeah. And Chris and I say, as hypnotists, the human brain, the human imagination produces the best special effects.
Absolutely.
The worst thing you see is a door being pushed. And that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else is just implied,
yeah.
And it's scary as hell.
Okay, that's powerful.
Now, there is good fear.
All right, so
like
we started
talking
about that. We've got to get on with this
show
here, don't we? Yeah.
We just edited
so there's
everything
the
out.
good heat. There's the good
heat.
Good here. Good fear.
Edit that out.
The kind of things that you should naturally have some.
Fear of heights is a good thing.
Yeah.
Past a certain point, because you can fall and die.
Or fear of a crazy, rabid, barking dog chasing you when you're biking down the street or something. Like, yeah, fear of a wolf a pack of wolves in nature. Yeah, that was weird.
What is a wolf? Wolves. The rolling wolf tiger.
A wild animal.
Like a wolf.
It's a very natural fear.
Now, listen, while we're on that, there's all kinds of fears. You know, we use... In advertising, we use fear. Scarcity, right?
Yeah.
Order now. Buy now. Well, we still have some left.
Again, more anxiety. Yeah, the fear of missing out.
But anxiety
FOMO.
is fear.
Yeah.
It's just a different kind of fear.
Okay.
But the fear of missing out. Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm. Does that work with you?
Well, it can absolutely. I could be thinking about...
Like if Elon Musk said there's only going to be one of these Tesla trucks available, you'd be on the phone to him personally buying it right away.
Yeah, definitely.
I never thought you'd admit it. I thought no, don't listen to him about my Tesla fleet. And that you just, I look at you considering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Jack the Considerer. And you just go, yeah, definitely. Now, I'm going to quickly go through a list of, and then we're going to go to a quick commercial. But I'm going to go to a list of phobias here. These are the 10 top phobias that people hold, not in any order. Social phobias. You know, social anxiety.
So again, do you want to, before we go, do you want to specify a little bit more about the difference between a fear or a phobia and an anxiety?
Yes. Phobias tend to be digital. They're black and white. They're either on or they're off. See snake, wah, freak out, snake gone. Okay, again. Anxieties build gradually. They're analog. They're like a dimmer switch. Oh, I've got to fly. Fear of flying, I think, is an anxiety, not a phobia. Treated
we're
lots
still
of
calling
times.
it a fear in the
We're
class
calling it a
of
fear. Fear
so
contains
fear
anxieties and
has
phobias.
Anxieties and phobias.
Right.
Okay, got you. All right. That's cool. That's a good way to think about it.
My brain is just clicking from those cognitive drops.
So,
it's fantastic.
So it's not always a phobia.
It's not always a phobia, but these are the most common fears. So social phobias.
Social anxieties or social
Speaking in public
phobias.
used to be the number one fear. Remember,
it was a huge one for me when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't have expected it. But it's interesting because, and Jordan Peterson says, it's all the faces looking at you, not saying anything.
You know, for me,
you're outside the pack.
I can't remember what grade it was, but it was probably
or if you're making it up now.
Grade 4 or 5,
Right.
and it was you've got to make a speech in front of the class. There was always this part of the year where the kids had to make you had to go
oral
home,
compositions.
You had to go write a speech, and you had to deliver it in front of your class. And the idea of delivering a speech in front of that class freaked me out, Mike, because I thought everyone's going to look at me and go, "Yeah, he's stupid." You know, just that idea. It's not interesting, right?
Well, it's interesting to me, Chris, because I had the opposite thing. I so enjoyed being up in front of the class that I would request. I would put my hand up, sir, say, when can we do oral compositions again? Oral book reports. The class is going, shut up.
That's funny.
All right. So, the social thing, the being in front of the tribe, but not part of it. The face is looking at you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is now greatly reduced because social media has put people out there. And also so many YouTube videos that people feel more comfortable being out there.
I think that for some people, it improves it. You know, the idea of posting selfies or whatever.
Oh, this stuff really comes out.
empty?
Yeah.
Okay, then
Well, it is
fine.
now.
You just knocked a coffee cup off
No, it's
the
empty.
desk.
It's empty.
And so I think
part
that
of my
for
charm.
some people, it will improve the situation. For some, though, it's like this safety net of you're not actually in a social situation.
Right.
And so if you're then in a social situation, it's not me posting a selfie anymore. It's me for real in front of real people. I don't know how to deal with this.
I don't know. I think there's an analog quality to it where the more people are put out there with social media, even things like I read a report on television programs that are, real life stuff. And what do you call all that?
No idea.
Come on. Don't be a dick.
No, what are,
It's a TV show like...
reality shows?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
it. That's it. That's
I
it.
was more focused on the idea of waiting for you to finish so I could say, well, you're
wrong, bastard. Now, the thing is that's interesting. We can say bastard, can't we?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about it is because of reality shows, too, so many normal people have been put out there front and center.
Right.
That it seems less of a barrier between celebrities like us
and everyone
normal
else.
people.
Yeah,
so,
like us.
Okay, so let's go through these phobias really quickly. So social phobias, agoraphobia, fear of open spaces. I treated that only once. And it was a young Canadian girl, really nice kid. And the problem with agoraphobia is it tends to contract. So first she couldn't go on a school trip because she'd gotten sick on one and it made her afraid. She had medical attention, her parents weren't there and so on. It went on. And then finally she couldn't leave her town. Then she couldn't, well, it wasn't finally, she couldn't leave her neighborhood. When I got to her, she couldn't go outdoors.
Wow.
Could not step out past her front step. Just the terror would come in. And that's fixable, but that is agoraphobia, true agoraphobia. Agora, of course, is from the Greek. It means the marketplace. The agora. That's
There you go.
why you hang out with me,
There
buddy.
you go. All right.
You realize, I thought the other day, between us, me and this guy here, this guy, we know everything. Everything I don't know, he does. And vice versa.
We do have a good combination.
Okay, don't keep
of
talking
knowledge.
about it. Acrophobia.
All right, acrophobia.
Fear of heights, very common one.
Okay.
Nobody has the fear of loats.
What's
but
this
that's what I
next
had.
one you've got?
Oh, this is a great one. Pteromerhanophobia. Now, you see ptera as in pterodactyl and as in pteranodon, and this is the fear of flying.
That's wild.
you
That's
could say-
actually a name.
Yeah,
There we go.
yep.
And it starts with a P, I see.
A pteromerhanophobia. Yeah.
Okay, so fear of flying,
claustrophobia, very common.
Opposite of agoraphobia.
Do you get claustrophobia at all?
No.
I only had it once. We had a Himalayan chinchilla cat at our cabin. I'm going to tell it like this,
I was
Chris.
just waiting for you
I
to say.
remember the cat was up in the attic. We couldn't get him out. He didn't want to get in the car to leave. And Dembe and I were doing our best to trounce him out of there with an umbrella and a broom, as one does.
Nice use of the
And he
word
wouldn't
trounce.
move, and I crawled up after him. And it's when I got wedged into the arc of the roof, I began to feel a sense of trepidation.
There you go. Okay.
Now,
So claustrophobia.
Yes. And look at this one. Entomophobia.
Fear of insects.
Entomology. Or, what's this one? Ophidiophobia. Fear of snakes. You wouldn't think, I would have thought it would be serpentophobia or something. Cynophobia. Not fear of cyanide. Not fear of blue. Not fear of going into cyanosis.
Fear of dogs.
Fear of dogs. Like, come on. Why? And astrophobia, fear of storms.
Dogs get that actually a lot
I
of
know.
the time, right?
And
Fear of
cats do.
storms.
They have, for cats, they have a thunder jacket. Do you know what that is?
No.
A cat has a little jacket you can put on, this nice little jacket, and it holds them.
So that
and it
they
calms
feel
their
settled.
fear. Yeah.
Okay, so the idea, fear of storms, is also one that my kids have gone through, where if there was a storm, and especially if the power failed, so if the power went out, we could expect. Now, my kids are old enough now. I think
phone
even
calls
if
are coming
they
from
listen to this
inside the
later,
house.
they're not going to be embarrassed. But when they were younger,
Yeah.
if there was a thunderstorm, followed by a power failure,
Yeah.
you could be guaranteed that their bed sheets were off their beds, all their pillows, and they were sleeping on our floor in our bedroom. Because they did not like the power.
And I threw in one of the brilliant lines from films. Those the calls are coming from inside the house, which actually happened in a case I worked on. The banging started, of course the other one is the roads washed out. The phones are down. Yeah. And the calls are coming from inside.
Anyway, so we got one more on the list here.
Trypanophobia, fear of needles. This is one I played on as a kid when I was learning, hypnosis and magic and stuff. My nephew Dale, the poor guy who was burnt to death. Remember, I give the eulogy at his funeral. Yeah. When he was a kid, he was very nearsighted. Nobody knew. His eyes hadn't been tested. He also had epilepsy, and he had seizures. They didn't diagnose it till later. So, because of his nearsightedness, Dale was terrified of needles. And he couldn't say needle when he was a little kid. He'd say Migo. He's got a Migo. And all I do is this. I hold up my thumb and first finger. And I say, Dale. I go, Dale, I've got a needle. And he'd go, Mom, he's got a Migo. Like this.
That's so weird.
And I'd run after him like this. And he'd think he could see a needle in my hand.
Because he couldn't actually.
Couldn't focus. Oh, so and I do this with the hand. I go, I've got a needle. I'm going to stick you. And it's terrible now, especially since he's dead.
And a lot of people probably who have that are now dealing with it manifesting because of the global vaccination going on.
Well, this is just it.
I mean, you have to deliver that through until they come up with an oral one. They're all delivered through needles.
Hilarious joke coming up there, but I can't say it. We have a commercial break, Chris. Tonight on the Grassy Knoll Network, the Jack Ruby story.
Finally, a fully ant-proof pseudo-documentary that's suitable for the entire family. Thrill to the exploits of nightclub owner, gourmet chef, and swimming coach Jack Ruby, from his birth in Chicago to his burial in West Lawn Cemetery and Mausoleum. You'll be astounded by the accurate recreation of the shooting of Lee Harvey Oswald and his organized crime connections to Larry Gomez and Honey Hallmark, just to name a few. The Jack Ruby story, starring Macaulay Culkin as Jack Ruby, Wolfgang Puck as Lee Harvey Oswald, and a special guest star, Steven Tyler, as John F. Kennedy. Sponsored by the Shizjig Foundation for World Peace.
We fear a lot of things. One of them that's common, Chris, is the feeling of we fear loss. We fear bereavement of family members.
Grief.
And we fear loss of our faculties as well. But the good thing is, as you get older and stupider and your brain goes, as mine probably will in about the next 30 to 50 years, you can't tell it's happening. That's the great thing. Only the people around you can.
You only fear it,
you don't
and
care.
then you don't actually know when it's happening.
This is correct. We fear the unknown. What if this happened? What if this happened? You know what happens to me, Chris, when a huge Zygarnik loop opens? Say my wife is phoning me at a certain time, and she's 2 hours late. And I haven't heard from her, and I can't get her on the phone. Yeah. Right away, I start to worry.
When someone says they're going to be home at a certain time, and they're not, and
there's a window that is still
and
reasonable.
Turned location tracking off on their phone.
Yeah, of course. And it is terrifying. And I think in my case, it's really bad because my dad's heart attack. I got the call out of the blue that he died at this. I mean, it really freaked me out. So we fear all of these things. We fear the Zygarnik loops being opened without closure on stuff. I said, remember our friend Paul? At Christmas at his place, he said, I'm waiting to hear from my doctor about that. He said, I went in 2 weeks ago and he did some tests and he's concerned. I haven't heard back. And his daughter goes, oh, Dad, he phoned last week. What? Yeah, he said, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. You're supposed to call him right away because he's going on vacation and needs to talk to you.
Oh, there you go.
And he's on vacation now. Paul's going to wait over Christmas. It's just horrible. Zygarnik loop.
Yesterday, friend of the family, my wife went to visit a friend of the family, and her girlfriend from long ago. Anyway, her husband had gone into the hospital because he has a history of a heart issue. Every year does a stress test and all that.
Yeah.
And this year, when he did the stress test, I guess the doctor said, there's something concerning. We want you to come back in for one of those dye tests where they inject you and
that'll
whatever, they do a scan. So, of course, now the stress of waiting for the result of that, right? Like, these are scary things.
What was this result? Was it an inverted T wave or compressed QRS complex?
Just wanted to say some smart
I know
stuff.
I did. I want to talk about cardiograms because I can read them. Yeah.
So, those are absolutely things that people are afraid of. The bad outcome, right? From a medical test or something.
No, the whole thing is...
Or these days, I mean...
Cancer now.
Gee.
1 person out of 2 will get cancer. 1 person out of 2 males.
And I can
which
think
means
of
probably you.
I can think of a particular respiratory virus that a lot of people are afraid
Well,
of
so
these
can I, but
days.
we're not
in fact, there are many viruses.
Chris, there
that
was a
people are
time I
afraid
thought
of.
I had testicular cancer. And this is absolutely true. And it was scary. I was doing the regular...
I'm so glad
in the
you brought
shower.
this up.
What, because you got it?
No.
I was in the shower. I was having, washing down.
Yeah, you're having a damn good
I mean, a damn good wash, as one should do, of all the wedding tackle. And I felt a lump just nestling under the vas deferens and the epididymis of the left testicle.
Oh, isn't that nice? Okay.
It's always the left one, the most vulnerable one, right? And I'm not kidding. This is true. And I shoot. Now, it was a testicular cyst.
Did you get the scalpel?
No, I was tempted. No, not in the pouch region, but in the actual epididymis behind and underneath. Why am I going to such detail? Anyway, bottom line is,
it was nothing.
they go away on their own.
Yeah.
But sometimes I wound up worrying about it for a few days, and then wound up taking Apis mellifica, which is honeybee, and in 24 hours it had vanished completely. And now it's in my arm. It's here.
Oh, if it's moved, it's just magic. There you go.
It's not here. But anyway, terror. We get a lot of fear, but let's give people some practical solutions.
All right.
If you got anxiety, as crazy as this sounds,
You only
I've
had to
used
wait
this a
40
lot.
minutes to get some actual value out of
But
this.
it's entertainment. It's having a laugh.
All right, so what do you do? What do you do about fear and
kidding
anxiety?
about? First thing, I want to show you this from Jinshin Jitsu. We taught this before. I think it's phenomenal. The thumb ties to the stomach in Japanese medicine, the stomach and the spleen. Now think about it.
We're going to adequately describe this for the listeners.
Yes, we are. Now, we say that you get butterflies in your stomach when you're nervous. That's how it ties in. All you do is use either hand, grip your thumb, the entire thumb, not the tip of it, like Jack the frickin' tip gripper, but grip the
Like it's
entire
the
thumb.
handlebar of a
Like a
bicycle.
handlebar of a bicycle
Yeah.
that you're actually holding on to instead of
your thumb.
brandishing the bike and riding down the hill without gripping. So grip your thumb with your entire hand firmly but not tightly, firmly enough that over a number of seconds you'll begin to feel a
the
pulsation starting in your thumb and in your hand. If you don't feel a pulse, according to Jinshin Jitsu, it means you really need to do it to clear this meridian. The interesting thing is,
I thought you were going to say it
as
means
the
you're
pulse
dead.
that too, as the pulse develops, guess what? Your anxiety will fade.
I feel
It
it
will
now.
absolutely fade. And if you're sitting in a doctor's office, you're worrying about something, just do it. Nobody can tell. Grip your thumb. Now, panic attacks, it's the first finger. Now, I don't want to be crude, but
Pointing finger.
The pointing finger. It's tied to the kidneys and the bladder as well. And what do we say? Well, I'm not even going to say it. Anyway, if you have a panic attack coming on, you can shut it down by doing the first finger grip.
Okay.
Now, panic attack's different. You're going to feel a tension in your neck. You're going to feel like extreme out of control, maybe breathing difficulties. You might feel like you're having a heart attack. It's a terrible thing. I've never had one, but my wife's had one, and it's a scary thing. You can shut them down by gripping your first finger, hold it, and feel for the pulse. Now, listen, guys, if you've got fear on a daily basis or anxiety, I recommend you do what I do. This has changed my sleep pattern. What I'm about to tell you is gold. Do the entire hand and the center of your palm before bed. So if we're watching a movie on Netflix or something, I'll start by gripping my thumb. I'll
Wait
get
till
the
you feel
pulse
your pulse,
happening,
yeah.
and I'll hold it for maybe a minute or two with the pulse going. Then I'll switch to the first finger, wait for the pulse, and then hold it for a minute or two. Third finger, ring finger, which is grief in the lungs, baby finger, and then finally rest your thumb in the center of your palm until you feel a pulse. This is a harder one to feel. There's a depth to it. So the thumb of either hand, the pad of your thumb in the center of your palm, hold, feel the pulse.
Is there a pulse in the center of your palm, or are you feeling the thumb's pulse?
I have no idea. And you can imagine, Chris, for someone of my intellect to admit that is very, very difficult.
I suspect it's the thumb pulse.
I feared you'd say that. Fear. So anyway,
There you
you do the whole sequence. 2 minutes on each one. Take you 10 minutes total, 12 minutes. Then do it again if you have time. Guess what?
You'll
Your
sleep
anxiety, yes, you will sleep so freaking well. This changed my life because I sleep so well now. If I don't remember to do Jinshin Jitsu at night, I typically wake up in the middle of the night a couple of times, don't sleep as well. This will get rid of your anxiety, and you can shut off panic attacks
You know what I'm
with it.
afraid of? You're hiding behind the microphone.
I am?
Yeah, look at you.
Oh, you're right. Like Jack the frickin' microphone
So,
hider.
For a lot of people,
Don't drive your thumb tip in.
Just
Like,
press.
yeah, you just
Flat.
press the pad of your thumb
Okay, got you,
gently.
yeah.
You can do it from above. You can even use the fingers of the other hand.
but here's what I wanted to say.
What did you want to say, Chris?
We were talking about anxiety and insomnia
Yeah.
in a conversation
Connected, yes.
sometime within the last week or
Yeah.
so. a lot of people have sleep problems because of anxiety.
Overthinking.
So they go to bed and either they have a hard time falling asleep because they're typically ruminating about what might happen, the worries. It could be financial. It could be, the government shut down my business. It could be whatever it is.
Scaring me.
There's stuff that's going on in the world that has people worried, and they ruminate about it. Or it could be that they wake up in the middle of the night. Maybe they wake up, they have to go pee, and then they lie back down in bed, and they're ruminating about all these things again, right? So it's harder to fall back asleep.
Right.
So doing this, if it will overcome the root problem, which is the anxiety or the fear, that may help solve your anxiety.
Right.
Your insomnia, I should say, not your
Exactly. It's a great first aid kit. When you've used this for a few times, you'll notice it actually does work. You're going to love it. Now, the other thing is this. I want to show you my 6-step really quick. The 6-step points you can tap. Very center of the top of your head.
If
tap
you're listening only, you probably want to
we're
go
gonna,
to
We're going to describe it. The very
this.
center of the top of your head, tap with your other hand.
Okay,
then the very center of your forehead with your other hand. Then outside your eye, just on either eye on the bone, directly under your eye on the cheekbone, and then your collarbone just off to one side on the underside, under edge of it on either side. Doesn't matter. And finally, you're going to either tap your wrist or squeeze your wrist and hold it. Now, the way you set it up, say you feel anxious, say you feel afraid. So it's something like, I haven't heard from my daughter. And you can tell. How scared do you feel? Give it a number out of 10. This is the subjective units of distress. It's about a 7 out of 10. I'm feeling pretty bad. Okay, so you say, tap on the top of your head and say, worried about my daughter. Tap in the middle of your forehead. I'm worried about my daughter. I've got this fear about my daughter. You're tapping the outside corner of your eye, under the eye, saying this fear about my daughter. I'm worried about my daughter. Do the whole sequence, grip, take a deep breath, and you can do Robert Smith's thing, relax and say, peace. That anchors the word peace to it. Then check. You'll notice now it's not a 7. It might be a 2. It might be gone. Just do it until it's gone. Always take it to 0.
It seems weird, and it works.
But it works, yeah. It absolutely works.
Right.
And
that's it.
That's it, buddy.
That's the whole show.
That's the whole show.
All right.
That's all she wrote.
So,
you need to give us the empowering questions for today.
All right. So here's your empowering question for episode 184. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of? I mean, really afraid of.
Yeah.
And is it a rational fear? And if not, what will I do about it in order to overcome it or minimize its effect on me now?
Amazing, Chris.
You've
Watch
got
this.
a MetaFIVE.
Scary. I think I was going to blind you with the card, and it's only you're watching a video.
Talent for throwing those cards. That's
amazing. No, I can do it really well.
All right.
Use the Howard Thurston method. My MetaFIVE, which is better than a metaphor.
Is a MetaFIVE.
This is the story of a friend of mine, Jack Doyle, and the examination. It fits in neatly with something I told a bit earlier, surprisingly. Jack Doyle's a funny as hell guy. He used to book acts at Carleton University. Algonquin College, all the different campuses. He used to book me in. And Irish guy, Irish-Canadian, funny as hell. And his brother, funny that I'm telling both his names, but don't Google him and talk to him about this. One of his brothers, so that way I'm not saying his brother's name, even though I know which one. He got an interesting diagnosis, Chris. Testicular cancer. Actually did.
Of the cornea?
No, of the testicle. Now, the problem is this runs in families among male members. So Jack had to go in and be tested for it. And he didn't want to go through this. As he described it, he said the doctor had him drop his drawers, stand next to his desk, and he said he began to pinch the very center of the gland and squeezing it. And he said he just remembers thinking, please don't slip, don't slip. He's afraid it was just going to slip out like this, which any guy knows is horrendous. I had a discussion with my wife once. She said, that can't possibly hurt. I said, are you out of your freaking mind? Anyway.
He's gesturing with a flick in case you're listening.
Yeah, so I'm flicking a finger at a testicle.
Flick your eyeball.
Yeah, no, exactly. Now, I'd rather be flicked in the eye, personally. So he said the doctor's squeezing, checking for this hardcore thing. And he said he felt like he was going to faint. He said he could tell he'd gone white. He said he was just sweating buckets. And the doctor said, oh, you're okay. And he said the sense of relief was greater than he'd ever had in his life until the doctor said, and now the other one.
Oh!
So there you have it.
I was just so tempted to interrupt you at male member.
Privy member.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to episode 184
That's all she wrote.
of the Brain Software Podcast. Hurrah!
Hurrah!
There we go. We'll see you again on the next one. I have no idea what the topic's going to be, but it's going to be awesome, and we'll make sure we get to the value part sooner. So check out our website. As far as
I just switched my superpower on.
Yeah, as far as stuff that will tell you to do, if you want to take next steps, if you want to make your life better, whether you want to learn hypnosis or whether you want to learn personal development skills for your own life, head on over to MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You'll find the products tab there. If you want to join either the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, you can start on a free trial, or we have a very, very affordable personal growth membership, which you can check out on the website. You'll enjoy it. Thanks again, and good night.
Mrs. Thompson, have you ever heard the remarkable story from the war of Colonel Peter Fitzwadsworth Smythe and Frank?
No.
It's a wonderful story. When the old colonel was getting on, middle of 1918, I suppose it was, the war was about to end, he was in a wheelchair by then and was becoming rather decrepit, and his mind was starting to go just a bit. He used to wheel himself off into his hut. He said if he had a question, he'd go and ask Frank about it. And he'd go into his hut. Well, not much of a hut, really, just some bits of brown paper strung together with wire and painted with vinegar. But he was reading a book on mesmerism as well. Oh, a wonderful thing. And he was studying mesmerism. He'd go off into his hut and we'd say, well, what should we have tomorrow in the mess hall? Wasn't much of a mess hall, really, just a cardboard box painted with vinegar. But he said, I really don't know. I'm going to go and ask Frank. And he'd trundle off in his wheelchair, just like young Milton Erickson, into his hut again. And then he'd come back and he'd have an answer. We couldn't figure this out. And then finally, we realized Frank was an imaginary friend. But then we determined he wasn't an imaginary friend. He was getting idiomotor signals. Do you know who Frank was?
No.
Turned out it was his prostate gland. He'd built a relationship with his own prostate gland, and he would set up idiomotor signals. He'd place 2 fingers under the root of his privy member, ask the question, and feel for the prostate to pulsate. He said 1 would be yes, and 6 would be no. And then he'd come back and tell us what we were having for dinner. It was extraordinary. I remember thinking at that moment how unusual and strange the war was becoming.